Hey friends, and welcome back to another Wellness Wednesday. Just hanging out here on my porch this morning. It's absolutely beautiful. We've been having some really nice weather the last couple of days, and I'm finally getting hopeful that summer might be finally here. Although who knows, it could totally change by this afternoon. So Amy over at Carnivore's Angel, she loves to drop bombs and get people riled up about things when she discovers new stuff, and she's always researching and trying to get to the bottom of things. And so she has been switching up her diet and sharing about her experiences, and she is going lower protein. She's following the Dr. Annette Bosworth protocol. That's a very therapeutic, high-fat, lower protein version of keto. The goal is to get like as deep into a state of ketosis as possible, so high blood ketone numbers and then low blood sugar as well. And through that, it is very therapeutic for the body and is used in fighting cancer and all kinds of different diseases. I think it's probably a very powerful therapeutic program, very similar to Paleo Medicina in, I think, Hungary. They have a clinic where they treat patients with these crazy diseases and cancers using a very similar carnivore version of this super high fat, very moderate to low protein diet, where the goal is just to keep your insulin as low as possible and get your blood ketones as high as possible. So since Amy has things going on in her health that she's wanting to address, she's adopting this kind of a therapeutic ketosis diet. And I think that's awesome. I totally support her. And if I was dealing with, the things that she's dealing with, like potential Lyme disease and the inflammation that she has going on, like 100%, I would be looking into this protocol for sure. If I were diagnosed with cancer tomorrow, I would absolutely be looking into a protocol like this. I think it's a very powerful therapeutic protocol. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why I'm not going to be switching to that for my everyday diet, considering I don't have any huge issues I'm trying to resolve. Lindsay over at Lindsay Murphy, her channel, she also mentioned that she's going to be going to a lower protein keto diet, kind of going back to her roots, to where she felt the best, and totally support that as well. You know that I am 100% about listening to your body and assessing your sleep, hunger, mood, energy, and cravings, like I always talk about. And if any of those are off, make changes. And it doesn't matter how perfect your diet looks on paper or how many doctors are behind the diet that you're doing and saying it's the perfect diet. If your body is not responding to it by having your sleep, hunger, energy, and cravings under control, and with that, like inflammation and free of disease, that kind of thing, if you are not getting that from the diet that you are consuming, as long as you're not like just in a adjustment period, change it, like try something else. And it would be so nice if we could hear a doctor say something or prescribe a diet and say, oh, they're a doctor, what they're saying must be true. That would be nice if we could have that kind of certainty and concreteness about this. But the fact is you can find 1,000 doctors and they're going to say 1,000 different things. So the credentials of the person behind whatever diet or protocol you're doing, at this point for me, it means almost nothing. It doesn't mean nothing, but it means almost nothing, in that I could find another doctor with the same or better credentials saying something completely opposite. So of course, listen to what people have to say and listen to what doctors have to say. But in the end, if you're doing a diet or a protocol or something prescribed by a doctor and you're not feeling the way you should or that you want to, I mean, why not change it? And then you could just go find something from another doctor saying something different and you try that. So I 100% support Amy and Lindsay in their quest and I will be watching very closely to how they do on this lower protein, higher fat diet. My experience that I will share real quick, and I do want to put in here that there are so many variables. It's very easy to, like for me, I could say intermittent fasting didn't work for me. I could say the Whole30 didn't work for me. I could say keto didn't work for me. But there are so many variables involved whenever I experimented with all of the diets I've ever experimented with, that I cannot say 100% for certain that, the problem was the Whole30. When I did the Whole30, maybe there was something else going on. When I did intermittent fasting, for example, I really, really experimented with intermittent fasting for a good long time, and I tried really hard on it. And in the end, I had to give it up because it just didn't work for me. But that was before I got my electrolytes nailed down. That's before I started taking Redmond Relight. And now it's like in the back of my mind, I'm like, I wonder if intermittent fasting would work for me now that I have that balanced. So there are so many variables involved that I don't want to say anything definite, like this lower protein, higher fat version of keto did not work for me and will never work for me, and I will never try it again. I don't want to say those superlative things because keeping in mind there are so many variables that are at play. So, but for what it's worth, my experience with the lower protein, higher fat version of keto, where you test your blood ketones, test your blood sugar, and you shoot for as high ketones as you can get, as low blood sugar as you can get within reason, of course, without dying, because you need some. I tried that diet back in, I think it was 2009. It was called Nutritional Ketosis back then, and it was kind of a response to Atkins and the people that had not, done as well or kept their results from Atkins as well as they had hoped. The response to that seemed to be that people were just eating too much protein, and protein gluconeogenesis turns into sugar in your body. So if you eat too much protein, it knocks you out of ketosis, and that's the problem. And so if you would just, lower your protein, and if you need to up your fat, then you would be doing keto correctly, and you would get into that state of ketosis. So that's what I tried. That's what I did. I had the blood ketone monitor, the blood sugar monitor. I was testing all the time. I was chasing the numbers. And I achieved them. I got, blood sugars in the 60s and the 70s. I got ketones. I occasionally saw them as high as like 4 and 5, but more reasonably in like the 2 or 3 range. And I kept my protein, in the 60 to 70 gram range, which was what was calculated for my size. And what I found was that my hunger and cravings increasingly got out of control. And I got to the point where fat was not satiating to me at all. And I would just eat and eat and eat of these high fat keto foods that were also low in protein and of course low in carbs. And it was like I was just a bottomless pit. I could not get satisfied with fat. And it was very frustrating. I also found that the longer I did it, the harder it was to achieve the numbers that I felt I was supposed to be having. And so it kind of led me down this road of more restriction, being encouraged to do more fasting, being encouraged to do less protein. And just, it got to the point where it was like stretching a rubber band, where I was working so hard and restricting so much to get these numbers that eventually I snapped. And my experience with it was my cravings were just out of control. And so one day I ate carbs. I don't even remember what it was. I just remember I had a serving of carbs with my meal. And for the first time in like a month, I felt full for like 4 or 5 hours. I felt satisfied, like that I'm finished eating type feeling that I had not felt at all doing this high fat, low protein keto diet. Just one serving of carbs. And I was like, that's it. Keto does not work for me. And I at that point thought, I need carbs. Carbs are the answer. I can't do keto. I have to have carbs. And so from then on, from that point, I started experimenting with adding carbs to my diet. That's when I did the Trim Healthy Mama diet, which if you're going to go from a keto diet to adding carbs, I absolutely recommend the Trim Healthy Mama diet. I had gained so much weight at the end of my keto diet because when you've been on keto and your body's not used to carbs and then you add back carbs in, oh man, your body just like explodes. Mine did, at least. And then when I switched to the Trim Healthy Mama diet, where you're separating carb meals from high fat meals, so you're not eating high fat and carbs at the same time, I lost all that weight. So I was really thankful for that. And I'm really glad that I did the Trim Healthy Mama diet at that point. Knowing what I know now, I just think that if I had increased my protein, maybe things would have been better and I wouldn't have had to go the carb route, because for a long time after that, I tried to coexist with carbs and, it just never ended up working out as well as I had hoped. And it wasn't until carnivore became popular that I even entertained the idea of doing something low carb again or close to keto, because I associated keto with that low protein. And I felt so horrible on a diet like that I wouldn't even entertain the thought of doing it. And so the only way keto or low carb has worked for me in the last, 3 years that I've done it is having the higher protein. So that is why I am not jumping on the lower protein bandwagon right now at this point. But as I have said many times, I do not think there is a perfect diet out there. I don't think that there's just one diet that everyone should do and that is right for everyone. We always have to take into account, where we're at personally and what things we're dealing with. But as far as I see from experts that I have listened to, there is great benefit to having your protein high. And by high, I mean, like I said, somewhere in the 100 to 150 gram range, depending on your size and your activity level. There are so many doctors and researchers, protein researchers, as well as ketone researchers that talk about higher protein having all kinds of benefits. There are also doctors, researchers, and experts that say having super high ketones have benefits. And I think both can be true 100%. And so when you're trying to decide, well, do I go towards the benefits that a higher protein diet gives me? Or do I go towards the benefits that a higher ketone diet gives me? It's going to depend on what's going on in your body and what is more important to you and where you're starting from. So absolutely, if I had cancer and I didn't want it to grow, protein stimulates growth, I would 100% be limiting my protein, and I would be diving in and researching and doing some kind of a lower protein, higher fat, therapeutic ketogenic diet. But that's not the state my body is in currently. And I am receiving a lot of benefits from having the higher protein. Now, if all of a sudden those benefits, started to diminish and I started to see negatives, absolutely, I would change things up. But from what I see right now, the benefits of the higher protein are what's most important to me. I have been following Vanessa from Ketogenic Girl and now the Optimal Protein podcast for a long time. I love listening to all of her experiments and her learning. She loves learning about all of this kind of stuff. So of course she originally was Ketogenic Girl. That was her, name online. And she was all about the ketogenic diet, a more traditional ketogenic diet. And then over the last few years, she's gotten really into protein, and she's been one of the driving forces that has encouraged the higher protein in the keto world. And so she was so influenced by everything she was learning from the different protein researchers and keto researchers and doctors and scientists that she even renamed her podcast to the Optimal Protein Podcast, because she wanted to switch her focus from just ketosis or keto to protein, because of how strongly she felt about protein being so important. And interestingly, in the last maybe 6 months or so, I've noticed that she's gotten a little bit back into the importance of ketones. And she's talking a lot about intermittent fasting and about getting your ketones higher and getting your blood sugar lower. So I'm kind of following her in my thinking about this. I came from a keto, more traditional keto diet. I found how important protein was to me. But then I also recognize that high ketones are important too, and they have great benefits. And so one interesting thing Vanessa has been talking about and kind of just exploring is, how do you get both? How do you get both the benefits of keeping your protein high and the benefits of having high ketosis? So she's thrown around the idea of taking exogenous ketones while eating a higher protein diet, which I think everyone agrees is not optimal. It's more of a biohack type thing. And then also she's just doing some extensive testing on herself, finding what she's calling her personal protein threshold, trying to find out how high she can go in the protein while still keeping her ketones at a level that she wants to keep them at. So I'm kind of thinking about that and thinking about getting back into testing my blood sugar. I have my breath ketone monitor. I'm going to be getting a blood ketone monitor soon to test it, because I think both things are important. I'm not willing to give up my higher protein, but I am willing to adjust it. I am willing to learn the data, see what my blood sugar's at, see where my ketones are at, and make adjustments to try to get as close as possible to the best of both worlds as I can. I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket, either the ketones or the protein. I guess kind of all my eggs have been in the protein basket recently. And so exploring putting my eggs in the ketone basket, that's fine with me. I'm all about exploring and experimenting and finding what's good, finding what's better, finding, what is going to be the most optimal for me at whatever point I am in my life. I know a lot of you have been spurred on to think about all of these things with the conversations that are going on in this ketovore space. And so just wanted to share my thoughts about it. Love to hear what you guys are thinking about the protein, about high ketones, your experience with doing a more traditional ketogenic diet, high fat, moderate to low protein, and how you felt on it versus a more ketovore, higher protein keto. Let's chat down in the comments, and I will see you again in another video.